Today on Max TV Magazine, we're getting back to nature, looking at gardening the natural way and exploring ways you can help conserve natural habitats. Hello and welcome to another edition of Max TV Magazine. I'm your host, Brad Grass, and it's such a beautiful day, we thought today we'd take a nice leisurely stroll through the park. I mean, in the city, we take advantage as much as we can of the many beautifully landscaped green spaces, although admittedly sometimes we do take them for granted. But in many parts of the province, efforts are being made to conserve wild plant life that create natural habitat for many endangered species. And that's why the good folks at Nature Saskatchewan have spearheaded various stewardship programs for just that purpose.
So the Stewards of Saskatchewan programs are quite a unique programs that we have here in Saskatchewan. So we work with rural landowners and managers to help conserve species at risk and their habitat. And it's a unique program in that it's all entirely voluntary.
And today we're here at the Waldorf Ranch with a wonderful family that is engaged in our Stewards of Saskatchewan programs. They have a number of species at risk that allows them to be involved in actually every single one of our programs. Our Shrubs for Shrikes, Plovers on Shore, Operation Burrowing Owl, Rare Plant Rescue, and the Stewards of Saskatchewan as a banner program as well for all federally and provincially rare species at risk.
I think it was Daryl who said, I think there's a program with Nature Saskatchewan. I think, you know, they might be able to add some value and
support us and educate us.
Right, help us. And as it turned out, yes, there was. And I think our first one was loggerhead shrikes.
Yeah.
And then from then, they would come out and do sort of surveys to tell us what else was on the property. And have scouted probably, I would say, a third to half of our native lands to see, really help us identify what might be there.
It's really interesting that all the loggerhead shrike, the leopard frogs, the burrowing owls, and it's very interesting to learn about those animals.
Because originally, you know, we wouldn't have known the different species at risk, right? When we bought the place, it was, you know, about an investment and a retirement project, and the untrained eye doesn't see so many things. And now, you know, over time, we're starting to learn a few more things that are always been there, and now we can see them.
Burrowing owls, loggerhead shrikes, and a number of the species at risk rely on very specific habitat or have very unique habits that require very specific areas and landscapes for them to survive. And so it's critical for them to have as large a landscape as possible for their population to survive.
He's got something in his beak.
A loggerhead shrike requires thorny shrubs and open rangeland to be able to hunt and impale its prey. It's a unique songbird that impales a prey like a raptor or a hawk that no other songbird does. It doesn't mean that the shrubbery or the shrubs are rare themselves. It's just the habitat as a whole. So the nesting, the foraging as a whole is rare for them or is in decline, sharp decline.
We have enhancement programs where we can actually offer funding for them to turn pasture, tame or cultivated land back into native pasture. They can build wildlife-friendly fencing or build alternative water sources for livestock.
It really involves, you know, first of all, discovering that those plants or animals at risk are on the property. And second is meeting with Nature Saskatchewan to help identify or confirm the identification that you do have a plover or loggerhead shrike or something on the property, and then, you know, just to get them involved and help provide a hospitable environment for those species at risk to flourish.
The best part of our job is we get to go out and we get to visit with these landowners and talk to them about the species and the land and how much we appreciate what they're doing, because they're really the heart and soul of these programs.
And one of the really important things that landowners do for us and for the species at risk is that they help us to monitor the species.
It's a wonderful organization.
It is.
I'm glad they exist.
Bringing awareness that there's such a need for, participation.
This is more than, agriculture is, it's a big business. And I've been involved with agriculture all my life, but we need to coexist. And when there's opportunities to preserve things that might be of interest to the next generation, I think we need to take that opportunity.
I feel we have a responsibility to conserve habitat that is disappearing and protect endangered species, and I think it's very, very important.
Oh, yeah. This is, it's called, I don't know, goat's beard.
Oh, goat's
Yeah.
beard. I love goat's beard.
Yeah. Rare Plant Rescue initiated in 2008 a dedicated search crew, Rare Plant Search Crew, to search native prairie, walking and surveying up and down, day in and day out for the summertime, particularly in June. Often we try and stick to flowering times when it's easiest to observe the plant and catch a glimpse of it, and slendermouse earcress in particular is in full bloom in June.
And it's not a very showy plant, so that's particularly why, along with the lookalikes, why it's hard to find.
Right, and also because it's a biannual, the 1 year it just has a little tiny rosette on the ground, and then the 2nd year it sends up its shoot to flower.
But these lobes are very similar to a slendermouse earcress, and the lobes on the slendermouse earcress are strongly clasping or holding around like this.
One, it's challenging to search for, and two, it has many lookalikes. So until it was actually given some attention, it wasn't actually known that it even existed in Saskatchewan.
Different survey methodologies depending on the plant, and that has to do with their flowers and how they're observed, their height, their size, that type of thing, sort of how they grow. But yeah, you do need to tread lightly, because when you're walking out on this open landscape, it could be anywhere, right? So when you're walking, you do have to be careful, and often we will search the same corridors several times, because just because we don't see it 1 year doesn't mean it's not there. There's lots we don't know about these plants, and that's where Rare Plant Rescue is a pretty cool program, in that there's not a lot of people doing what we do in terms of actually getting out on the prairie yourself and searching, literally walking the prairie and looking with your own naked eye. So.
And because some of them are so well camouflaged and so tiny, for example, tiny cryptants, exactly that. It's cryptic in that it can camouflage really well, and it's tiny. Rare Plant Rescue has contributed to the downlisting of 2 species that we know of for sure. One is the buffalo grass, and the second one is hairy prairie clover. And without our program and the search crew contributing to that, these species would stay on the list longer.
And downlisting, she's talking about the sort of hierarchy of how rare a plant or a bird or something is. So it can go, special concern, threatened, endangered, extirpated, or extinct. And so when something's downlisted, it means that it's taking that particular species from a more sensitive category like endangered and moving it down to a lesser rare category like threatened.
Which then impacts the activities that happen on the land.
Yeah. So how people get involved in the program is kind of two ways. So if you have native prairie, then you definitely hold a really nice rare piece of land nowadays in the Saskatchewan prairies, since a lot of it has been cultivated. That native prairie is really important for a lot of species at risk in the province, and in most cases, to be honest, if you have native prairie, you probably have a species at risk of a bird or a mammal or a reptile or amphibian on your land. And so one thing is just to give us a call, and we will give you any information that you could possibly want. We can tell you what species we're looking for, you know, even plants or animals. We can send you pictures. We can come out and have a visit, you know, if we're in the area.
People do not believe us when we say we get paid to do this work. We get paid to drive around the grid roads and meet with people. And with that, we get to see incredible landscapes that this province has to offer.
Now, there are many ways that you too can help with conservation. For example, you could water your lawn in the evening as opposed to during the day when there's less usage. Or you can limit your use of herbicides, much like the Wascana Center Authority did by, in the month of May, renting a herd of adorable little goats to munch on the weeds in Wascana Park. Okay, well, maybe hiring a herd of goats to work on your lawn isn't very practical, but you can limit your usage of pesticides on your garden, and garden really pesticide-free. The Regina Horticultural Society is here to show you how. Herd of goats? Flock?
The gas book and put your name in.
What I'll do is I'll sort of take you through my journey. And I think that there's a huge community, and in this province, a huge growing community of people that are interested in pesticide-free alternatives. And I would like the meme to be that pesticides are the alternative. So we use everything else, and then if we desperately need to, then we might consider using a pesticide. This is what I'm really interested in, is what are the impacts of having a whole bunch of these things assault us at the same time. Whether or not we need pesticides is a great question. I personally didn't grow up using pesticides at all. My mom gardened without pesticides, and I don't see them as a necessary to use. I don't think that their benefits outweigh their costs. When we went to Berlin, we were amazed that they've had a ban on pesticides for years and years and years, and just the sound of birds in the city, it was incredible. One of the easiest alternatives to pesticides is gardening maybe in a different way. Maybe you don't put all of the same species in one place. So, for instance, carrots and leeks. The carrots will repel the pests that attack the leeks, and the leeks will repel the pests that attack the carrots. So this is called companion planting, and it's a well-known method that's been used for, I'm sure, thousands of years. You can also use other pests to deal with pests. So ants and ladybugs are great examples. So if you can attract those into your garden, those are fantastic. They'll do fantastic work in your garden. The ants not only make the soil healthier, but they also attack the herbivores or the plant-eating insects that are going after some of your plants.
I'm interested in organic gardening, and I understand the importance of microbes. The soil is actually a living organism, and there's all of these incredibly complex microbes that are living in the soil, and how important it is to our health and our food and our overall environment. So I thought it was really interesting. I just think we need to make a real shift in our thinking, and I suspect that 20 years from now, it'll be just like cigarette smoking, right? Like 30 years ago, everybody smoked in the workplace. And I hope that a few years from now, it's going to be the same thing, that pretty soon you're not going to be using herbicides and pesticides either.
The people that I meet and I talk to are so generous. They're so willing to share information. I've learned so much on my personal journey. I learned first from my mom, and then when I started my own garden, working with my partner and learning together. So I think if you go out there and you engage the community in places like the Regina Horticultural Society, you'll meet people who have just a wealth of knowledge and are willing to share it. So thank you.
Well, we just looked it up and they both work. You can say herd of goats or you can say flock of goats. How about that? What a trip. Well, that's it. Another edition of Max TV Magazine. Thanks once again for joining us. And until next time, make sure you take some time out in your day to smell the roses.
If you have program ideas that you'd like to see on Max TV Local On Demand, write us at max.local@sasktel.com. Max TV programming is now available on Max TV on the Go at maxtvonthego.sasktel.com.